Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. We are coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. We're on your digital terrestrial TV because we're free to air. You can catch us live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. This is Joy News, fearless, independent and credible. Coming up this afternoon, we have no contractual agreement with road toll workers. The Ministry of Roads and Highways responds to growing demands for the reinstatement of the workers following the indications by government that new road tolls may be applying in the coming days.
How many contractual agreements with the private road toll collectors? So that is what is currently the case when we speak about the table association.
This afternoon, as we hear from the aggrieved workers who say government has neglected them. Is that the case? We'll find out shortly. Also, Finance Ministry refutes claims by the minority that the central bank printed over 22 billion cedis to fund government expenditure.
The statement was false, it's not true. There is no foundation to that claim, and we want Ghanaians to treat that with a pinch of salt.
We're live in Parliament shortly on that. And Ernest Gayo becomes the latest nominee to the Supreme Court as President Akufo-Addo tables 3 additional names to serve as justices of the Apex Court. We have details and their profiles plus analysis on that. My name is Blessed Sogah. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Digni Lu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Remember that this afternoon we're streaming live on YouTube and all of our social media handles. It's at JoyNews on TV, Twitter at with the hashtag The Pulse. I'm Blessed Sogah. Always a pleasure serving you here on The Pulse. Please stay. We have no contractual agreement. That's the response from the Roads and Highways Ministry to the growing pressures by the road toll workers asking government to reinstate them. After months of scrapping the revenue measure, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says new roads constructed and the private-public partnership will be subject to some road tolls. We can listen to the Finance Minister.
The Ministry of Roads and Highways is currently under review by GIF, Ministry of Roads and Highways, the Office of the Attorney General, and the Ministry of Finance. When completed, the concession agreement is expected to be approved by the PPP Committee, Cabinet and Parliament. The completed road will be tolled. Mr. Speaker, all new roads of this nature will be tolled.
Well, following this announcement, the road toll workers say government must stay true to its promise of reassigning or reinstating them. Well, we do know that earlier this year, Deputy Employment Minister Bright Brobe is on record to have said the following words, which we're putting on your screens right now, indicating very clearly that at the time of the suspension of the toll collection, a total of some 784 toll workers were engaged by the Ghana Highways Authority. Now, the government is currently engaging with the Toll and Routes Management Limited to develop other employment modules for the re-engagement of the toll workers. So that's the statement the Deputy Employment Minister made at the time. Meanwhile, Deputy Roads and Highways Minister Stephen Jalula says government does not have any power to reinstate the workers. That he disclosed this afternoon on our midday bulletin on Joy 99.7 FM.
In his presentation, indicated that the government was going to do the Accra motorway on a PPP basis, and after the road is done, it will be tolled because it's going to be a private investment, or it's going to be done under concession. and that means that the investors need to pay it back. So if he says that we are going to toll the road, that is the PPP road, and he was very emphatic that going forward, all the PPP roads will be tolled. But it doesn't mean that the public roads that we see the collection of tolls on, we are going back to collect on those roads. That is not what he intended. Yeah, let me say that the disabled people came into the sector basically through my boss when he took over office in 2017, and then realized that they needed to be engaged to also contribute their quota to the development of the state. So he began, he asked the private road toll collectors at the time to engage the disabled people so that they could also work. Now, the engagement with the private road toll collectors ended in December. And as you are aware, it will lead to something else if we kept on paying these staff who are working with the private road toll collectors, because in the end it will somebody may go to jail for causing financial loss to the state, because we do not have any contractual agreements with the private road toll collectors. So that is what is currently the case when we speak about the disabled association.
So that's the position of government on this. Well, we've been assessing the concerns of the road toll workers. Here's a report by Jojo Kobna on their plight.
If I get the opportunity, not less than 50% of those engaged, to be given to the physically challenged, because it's one sure way of giving them some employment.
The promise to employ persons with disabilities to collect road tolls subsequently became a reality. The NPP government put a smile on the faces of the people who were employed there. Subsequently, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, made a firm commitment to do more.
Persons with disabilities would constitute not less than 50% of the people employed to operate toll booths across the country.
However, when the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta declared that the toll booth operations had been abolished, the hopes of the workers were crushed.
The government has abolished all tolls on public roads and bridges. The toll collection personnel will be reassigned. The expected impact on productivity and reduce environmental pollution will more than offset the revenue foregone.
The pledge to reassign all toll booth workers has not come to pass yet. For 6 months, the workers have not received any salaries yet.
So we respect because what frame meeting and what because when we say they are what it will be able to meet you, but he said you man go in a day. It was fire and yesterday. At least ye did them. Ye say ye did them. Ye them didn't cry. Forget it. Say ye be ye. Ni yaka crack koyano. Forget ya forget it. Them na ye dino. We are focusing on say be koyen nim. But after the way I see about can na ye disability no. Aye kese. Problem na aye kese pa men kan dada. Enye easy.
You know easier. Yeah. The world is falling on me. I be praying for the man them. Don't nobody understand them. Yeah. You know easier. Yeah.
That is Evelyn Gadri. She used to work at the Pobiman toll booth. When the going got tough, she started hawking in the street to put food on the table for her 4 children. She waved through vehicles to sell her wares to commuters. But an accident around the Achimota-Melcombe area has left her in shock. She identifies the girl who was involved in the accident in a video had taken earlier.
Lady back on a beggar or not what a wheelchair. Ukita Mufra, Ketua Min be your twins. Your one was a Mr. Cabiati free. Your fab franoso. When we at once. Nina mienu nyina de say and I wouldn't coy 3 days time no beka change our friend ntino amane mama no so me na bi ote mama no so mbabium on our friend because ni aye ne de ama me kura mpo na ese mi so misuro se me so me ko.
Evelyn joined other toll booth workers to picket at the Ministry of Roads and Highway, but that yielded no results.
Yakuhun several times. The beer is on the pipeline. The beer also is on the pipeline. The other time you go catch and say, "You train 1G11 into to what you two movie to cry a man of time. Kakran yes uncle bium. Your course is on the pipeline and the young trainer. Your pipe now say pipe ben cran wood to cran wound to me. The beer pipeline.
Evelyn is frustrated because her husband's shoemaking shop was also demolished, so he's also out of work.
Bia won so bubu kiosk no na kiosk ni mo an o yedwon but ho so an na yeda enti for na won bubu no so no hefa na yebeko ye ni bebi a yebeko but na manage me dia kopon enim say on chen to me na say da ko me hu sentinel ha me pa me da first me ni able person na until but me hu so wan hwe me ona me no wo me ba pen no wan hwe 15 years mo busy by this time. So no ana family or ye me ho ade kakra bi ene ade ne ye manage kakra but what some baby bu ni die na wo mu ni kiosk me ana na me kwadwuma ba no na bibia ko ye fine me maintain fie ade no e hante me.
Odoi, Evelyn's husband, says he is now miserable because of the current state of the economy.
Ni bra ba ko bi kra e besra na o mano 102 bi 1.2 o si sa de o be to fini nyama o traffic enu kra po mi catch say e dangerous no si da bi kola no si say school o school fees so mbe ko school kra o duane di kra be din.
Genevieve also used to work at the Pobiman toll booth. Due to the high cost of living and the fact that she's currently jobless, she feels suicidal.
Because my dream is me baby. See, I'm missing nyina me kura. Me bank account kura de. Say last money I'm banuko yi na fill forms. No si mama scan e wo NIB. E wona ye de pay fanti e wona ye save 50 Ghana.
She says the news about the abolition of the toll booth took a toll on her. Prior to that news, a car lost control and crashed into the booth she was working in. She was trying to get away when she fell on her hip, breaking hip implants and worsening her condition.
A certain Kia Bongo came when I gave the ticket. So when he moved for me to serve another car the ticket, then I heard bang. So I don't know what happened. So I was struggling in the boot till I fell down on my leg, and one of my leg is longer than let's say Ghana is longer than Africa. So I used to wear special sandals. So it slipped me, and this my leg went down heavily, and the implant inside got break.
Authorities at the toll booth did not cover her hospital bill. She appealed for funds to undergo surgery, and upon recovery, she was hit by the news that toll booths had been shut down.
I was not at work that time because I had an accident at the workplace, so I was in the house. So when I heard the news, it was not easy for me. It was not easy for me to control myself. I was hoping that I will get better and go back to work.
So my colleague Jojo Kobina there assessing the plight of toll workers. You've seen that for yourself, but This afternoon, we're getting a bit of an update from the Roads and Highways Ministry as to what it is that will be done in terms of reinstating or reassigning workers on the various tolling points across the country. Well, Stephen Jalula, who happens to be the Deputy Minister in charge of that sector, says government currently as it stands has no contractual agreement with the toll workers.
The Minister in his presentation indicated that the government was going to do the Accra motorway on a PPP basis. And after the road is done, it will be tolled because it's going to be a private investment or it's going to be done under concession. And that means that the investors need to pay it back. So if he says that we are going to toll the road, that is the PPP road. And he was very emphatic that going forward, all the PPP roads will be tolled. But it doesn't mean that the public roads that we see the collection of tolls on, we are going back to collect on those roads. That is not what he intended. Yeah, let me say that the disabled people came into the sector basically through my boss when he took over office in 2017 and then realized that they needed to be engaged to also contribute their quota to the development of the state. So he asked the private road toll collectors at the time to engage the disabled people so that they could also work. Now, the engagement with the private road toll collectors ended in December. And as you are aware, it will lead to something else if we kept on paying these staff who are working with the private road toll collectors. Because in the end, it will somebody may go to jail for causing financial loss to the state. Because we do not have any contractual agreements with the private road toll collectors. So that is what is currently the case when we speak about the Disabled Association.
Well, so that's the position of the ministry on this matter. Well, fortunately, I've been joined by some executives of the Ghana Toll Workers Union. Henry Dobe is chairperson of the group, and Eddie Danka happens to be the General Secretary for the Ghana Toll Workers Union. So, gentlemen, welcome to the studio. Eddie, let me start with you. You've heard the Deputy Minister in charge of Roads and Highways indicating that if we go ahead to reinstate or reassign you, we may be prosecuted for causing financial loss to the state.
Good evening. I'll say hello to all your viewers and then the toll workers. It's listening to him. I felt it's. I don't know how to express it. I mean, there's anger, there's rage, and it's laughable as well. I mean, how can you say that paying us is causing financial loss to the state when you're the very people who promise us that you're going to cease our operations and then you will pay us every month until you reassign us? You know, telling us that giving us salaries to survive on, to live on, is causing financial loss to the state. Can we say same for the action of the Honorable Minister of Roads and Highways?
But you've heard, for instance, the minister explain that in terms of your recruitment, it was done by a private organization, and that contract has been terminated. So
but
it may be a bit difficult to reinstate you, isn't it?
Well, what he's saying is that, you know, we were put on a 6-month contract.
Right.
Good. It was subject to renewal based upon your performance. But in actual fact, the contract was never renewed. And I started working in 2019. 2019, I started working. So it was not renewed. Okay. So the assumption was that you've been taken on permanently. I mean, you're working, you're getting paid, so everything is fine. And for him to also say that or suggest that our contract ended in December 2021, it's neither here nor there, because nothing showed that our contract is supposed to end in December. And unfortunately for him also, the private contractor, which is Tolls and Routes Management Limited, who I was working under, who most of us were working under them, gave us a letter, termination letter, dated on the 17th of June. So we have evidence that...
Well, so the indication you're giving us now that is that even your contractual agreement ended just this month.
Yes.
Or let's say,
Last month.
took effect last month.
Yes.
So you even have between the period of January to the first half of the year to claim a salary.
Yes. Yes.
Genuinely speaking.
Yes, genuinely. And even that, the last time I was here, I made people know that we're not even going by that letter because, I mean, the initial promise, because you said you're closing tolls, and this is what you attach to closing the toll, which is you're going to find, first of all, you're going to find alternate livelihood for us. But in the interim, before you give us that alternate livelihood, you're going to pay us.
Right.
That was the promise you attached to closing the toll. So as long as you have closed the toll, you have not opened it, you still owe us until you reassign us. And what we have come to realize is that the reassignment, in the past, we realized that the reassignment is taking too long. So we suggested, and we're all saying that, if you cannot find any other alternate livelihood like you wanted to do, and like the Minister of Finance also said some time back, that the government payroll is full. Then the toll booths, the structure, infrastructure, everything is already there. All you had to do is just call us back to go and work. But what
that's what you're demanding.
Yeah.
But I'm minded at this point to bring back the words of the Deputy Employment Minister somewhere earlier this year, assuring that you are going to be reinstated or reassigned. I'd wanted to quote his exact words. We'll try and get that on the screens for you. What it is that Bright Rekubrobe had indicated at the start of this year. Probably we just roll excerpts of that for you so you can get a sense of what it is that he had to say about the reassignments. But I was just trying to pick up on what he said, where he indicated very clearly that government was redesigning modules that will place you either at some different tolling centers, or would have to reassign your members. But Chairman Henry, let me find out from you, is it the case that that engagement has broken down ever since?
As my brother said, they said they will reassign us, but before the reassignment, they will be paying us until we are being assigned. So for the first 3 months, we were not receiving anything, and we tried to engage our contractor. So when we engaged him, and then he said the government did not fulfill his bargain, so we should wait. We should give him another time for him. We would like to see them. Whatever it is, they will inform us. So when we got to him the next time again, he said, oh, because the government is not responding to the bargaining, he suggested that he will give us notice of termination. So he notified us that he's going to terminate our appointment by June.
That was the notification, and this was way before or way after the announcement. The announcement of that the booths were closed across the country. The announcement from the finance minister.
No, that one happened unexpectedly.
Okay.
We were not aware. We were waiting, and then the announcement came.
So what you're even telling us now is that even after that announcement, you were not officially communicated to that stop working until the end of June.
No. When we even made attempts to see the minister of roads and highways, the man told us that we are not having any agreement with the minister. He says that we are having an agreement with, so he's going to deal with us. And then the minister assured them that they should still continue to pay us until we are reassigned. So because of that, we actually mellowed.
Right.
But as time goes, we realized that nothing was coming out of that. So we approached him again, and then he told us that looking at it, the government is not trying to fulfill the bargaining. So he's going to notify us. If he tried again, there was no positive response.
Right.
So fine. Then the notification letter came that because the government is not trying to fulfill the bargaining that they had with them, they have terminated our contract. That was 17th June. So if you are saying now that our contract ended in December.
So basically you're saying the deputy minister did not get his facts right?
No. We received termination letter in 17th June.
Which is to even take effect a month after,
yes,
right?
Month.
So after a period of a month. So let's say it's supposed to expire somewhere in July. 17th July, or with immediate effect. What was on that letter?
They said they are going to pay us. We are still their workers.
Okay.
recently, last month, June 17th,
Right.
we received letters of termination.
Yes, I'm interested in that letter. That letter, what did it communicate to you? Did it say you were ending in that month of
Yes,
June?
it's effective.
Effective June.
That
Okay.
June,
So that was the agreement.
Yeah, 17th June effective, because the government did not fulfill their bargain.
But what plans were you given in terms of paying the backlog or the arrears that your members were owed?
So they said the government's supposed to be paying us, but because the government is not paying us and we are also mounting pressure on them, they think they have to withdraw from this case, because the government told them when he was coming to do that, he did not inform them before he did it, and when he caused the closure to, he told them that you should not lay anyone off until we are being reassigned. So until we are reassigned, they will be paying us until. So we were waiting for that promise before we realized that, no, these people, they were just trying to find some place to actually push us off. So that's why we wrote a letter to the leadership of Parliament, and then we petitioned the Honorable President, His Excellency Nana-Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, that he should try it and reopen the toes, because the promise you made was not fulfilled. And we are about 800 workers. 800 workers, through what even the information minister said, that the government's payroll is almost full. Yeah. We don't believe that they are still going to recruit that 800. And the tools booths are still there. All the facilities are there.
Right.
And we can go back at any time and start the work. Why didn't he reopen the tool so as we go and start the work to avoid this sort of unemployment hardship for us? So when we went there, we actually engaged with some of them. They promised that they will assist us so as our issues will be addressed. Right. Just yesterday, that the Minister of Finance, we thought, it's going to be a very good day and the happiest
moment for you in terms of the announcement.
But it was just disappointing.
I'm interested in taking your thoughts on that as well. Adi, let me bring you in because of the concerns relating to the new module that was announced by the Finance Minister. It doesn't look as though all the tolling points will be reopened. I don't get that impression. I stand to be corrected. But what's your own impression of what the Finance Minister said?
It's same as and like my chairman said, we're very disappointed because we were actually at Parliament House yesterday, hoping that we'll hear something good. But the information that came, as in there's going to be PPP, and then and then they mentioned Temamoto Way, and we also know that Temamoto Way is an old road, so and they're going to collect tolls on those roads. And we're saying, if before you close the toll, you give reasons, you said traffic and then pollution and all. Are you telling us that this toll booth that you're going to mount, there will be no traffic, there will be no pollution there? And if indeed there will be no traffic or pollution, why don't you replicate the same on all the roads so that the unemployment that you've created, it feels like our leaders do not really feel the pain that we are going through. That is the sense that they don't. Because if they did, you won't be juggling us like this. People's lives have been lost due to this issue. Yeah. People's marriages are falling apart. People's children are at home. People cannot pay rent. People call us that even to upkeep food, they don't have money to buy food. We are in a difficult situation, and we've communicated this to the Honorable Minister for Roads and Highways. The last time we had a meeting with him, we told him, these are all the problems that we're going through. In the meeting, it felt like he sympathized with us, but it's been like 3 months over. And we're hoping that, if really you sympathize with us and you felt for us, in the meetings that you've had with cabinet meetings and all that, you propose that they open the tolls. So yesterday we were expecting that.
Don't you feel that government is restrained simply by the legal implications, as we're hearing from the Deputy Minister? The fact that government did not directly employ your members. That's also a challenge, isn't it?
No,
right.
The toll workers, we have 2 categories.
Okay.
Some are under Ghana Highways Authority. Those are the minor tolls. Okay. And then the major tolls are under the Tolls and Route Management Limited. But our problem is, if you are talking about that, you want to toll the new roads, and the money being used to construct the road you tow the road to pay.
Right.
What about the many years that the tolls that the revenue you collected on the previous route?
What was it used for? Is that a question you're asking?
A legitimate question to ask.
You are telling us you told that one to pay. What about the previous one, the monies that you generated from there? Look at even a year, last year, the total this thing will be almost 85 million Ghana cedis.
Right.
Does it mean road toll is meant for road maintenance? It's not for road construction. So all the toll booths, where the stretch to the toll booths and from the toll booth has to be maintained from the toll money. And those things were not done. So when the drivers and they get there, we are the people that they attack. That we are just stealing monies and other things. Because one, you are the one who collect the money from there, direct. You collect the money from there, and they don't see any improvements on the roads. So they say you are a thief. And right now you are telling us you are going to construct new roads and put tolling on it. You should try and maintain the ones that he has collected. Then he can go back and construct the new ones and put.
So what you're basically saying is you disagree with the finance minister
Yes.
of the plans for this new road?
That plans, when you construct road, we maintain roads. That's why the tolls are on it. So right now, if you are saying that you're going to construct Tema toll is existing road, you are going to do expansion. After the expansion work, you put tolls on it. What about those ones that you collected?
Well, let's talk about the future and what plans you have set in place as a group to mount pressure on government. Adi, tell us about it. What are we to expect in the coming days?
Well, it feels like in this country of ours, when you're trying to be diplomatic, you're trying to play by the books. Our politicians do not pay heed to it. You have to go overboard. You have to do something that it is, excuse my language, unlawful,
right.
Like we witnessed recently, not quite long ago, in Kumasi. So leadership, we've thought of it. We're going to sit down and plan on the next action to take. But we want the people in authority to be rest assured that the kind of pain and the suffering that we're going through, we'll throw it on them. We'll let them feel what we are feeling in our next action that we'll take. If they will not solve these problems, they will not amicably solve this problem, we will go the long haul with them. I can tell you, on the platform that we are, the sentiments and the kind of expression, the things that people say, look, we are faced with a lot of things. We are faced with issues of armed robbery and, stealing here and there and all that. And now the new threat of terrorism is just by, close to us, right. In our next door countries. You see, what one guy called me and told me, if I should say it here, I'm sure BNI will come and pick me up or something. Right. You see, this is when you suppress the people too much. This is, you're killing us slowly. So it feels like life is unbearable. Some people have expressed suicidal sentiments. They want to take their lives. And like I told you the last time, 3 people have lost their lives through all these things.
Really?
Yes, through all these things. So what are you doing to us as citizens? We are all citizens of this country. We are supposed to share the national cake together. Why is it that some people are better? Why should we be the ones who wait without salary for months on end, whilst our people in authority get their salaries, get their bonuses, get all that is due them? Our salary ranges from 700 to 1,200 a month. How much is this? Why is it so difficult for our authorities to pay us this salary in arrears? There are people who have rent arrears. They need money to pay. You see, we have stood in for those people. So we have spoken to landlords and all that. Right. So if they are not able to fulfill those promises that we stood in for, then we are in trouble as well, and they are in trouble as well.
We need to go. Let me give you a minute each. I'm sure that those in authority are watching us now. What message would you send across to them? I'll start with Chairman Dogwe.
Oh, as my brother said, we actually, whatever we will do, we will not say it now, because we've given them enough time. They should have to respond to our plight. People are dying. People cannot get even one daily meal. At least the toll booths over there generate a lot of money. A lot of money. They should use the money for intended purposes. They shouldn't use toll money to go and do different things and come and put the blame on the toll collectors that they are not making money. because the money being generated from the toll are not used for toll work. If Bobiman can generate a month 800 to 900,000 Ghana cedis, are you saying that within 1 year, that stretch of road cannot be maintained with that amount? Unlike a Kasua, who is making averagely 35,000 Ghana cedis a month. So, you see, they are not using the revenue for their intended purposes. And they are pushing blame on us. We don't have any problem. We said they promised that they are going to reassign and pay us. So we are only waiting for that. They should do that nicodemously, and that is all.
Eddie, let me wrap up with you.
Yes, I would like to make a personal appeal to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana. As we served the petition, we gave him a copy, and I believe by now he has gotten it. So we are pleading with you. You are our president. I mean, you are the one that we look up to. The rest of them, your appointees and all, you know, we voted for you and you appointed them. We're begging you. What your appointees are doing, it's causing untold hardship to your citizens. We are begging you, Mr. President, please, call your minister to order. Let him go and open the tolls so that they can employ all of us. We are suffering. We're in a situation it's serious, Mr. President. Please, we are pleading with you. Thank you very much.
And that's the plight of the toll workers. We'll still keep our eyes on that story and bring you some updates. But let's focus on this. President Akufo-Addo, as we understand, has nominated 4 judges to the Supreme Court. In a letter to Parliament read to the MPs by the Speaker, Alban Bagbin, the President indicated that the appointments have gone through the Judicial Council and also the Council of State. Now, the names of the judges, current Court of Appeal judge, we have Barbara Aka Yerisu, we also have Samoa Dibu Asiedu, and George Kingsley Kumson. There's also one High Court judge who's involved in this, Ernest Gayo.
Justice Barbara Francis Akayensu, Justice of Appeal. 2, Justice George Kingsley Kumson, Justice of Appeal. 3, Justice Samuel Sedu, Justice of Appeal. And 4, Justice Ernest Yao Gau, Justice of the High Court. Upon receipt of the Judicial Council's advice, in accordance with my duty under Article 144, Clause 2, I consulted with the Council of State by submitting the names and curricula vitae of the nominees for appointment to the court. The Council of State has, by letter dated 25th July 2022, notified me of the successful completion of the consultation process. I am, therefore, in accordance with Article 142, seeking the approval of Parliament for the appointment of the nominees as Justice of the Supreme Court. Their curricula vitae are hereby attached. I am fully satisfied that each of these persons is duly qualified and eminently fit to discharge the functions of a Justice of the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, it is my respectful hope and expectation that the approval of the nominees will proceed expeditiously to enable them assume office as soon as practicable.
Well, Speaker Bagbin has since referred the appointments to the committees necessary for consideration.
Honorable members, the contents of this message from His Excellency is accordingly referred to the appointment Finance Committee for consideration and report to the House.
And now the Ministry of Finance has also denied allegations by the minority that the Bank of Ghana has printed more than 22 billion cedis to fund government operations. Now, according to the ranking member on the Finance Committee, Dr. Kezela Toforson, the printing of the said amount was not authorized by Parliament, but Deputy Finance Minister John Kumar says that the 22 billion cedis have been given as overdrafts from the central bank, but not through money printed.
And made some baseless claims that the Bank of Ghana has printed 22 billion Ghana cedis. First of all, the statement was false, it's not true. There is no foundation to that claim, and we want Ghanaians to treat that with a pinch of salt. Section 30 of the Bank of Ghana Act allows central government and BOG to operate on overdraft basis. It is within the laws of the country. And so on the Bank of Ghana's own balance sheet, they can give overdraft to government as a loan, which can be repaid within a specified period. And this is not the first time any government has done that. When he was deputy minister, Bank of Ghana supported the Ministry of Finance and Government of Ghana on the same arrangement within the Bank of Ghana Act. So what has changed? That today we are told the new economics from NDC is that when Bank of Ghana gives overdraft to government of Ghana, it is called printing of money. I am surprised. This is not economics, and they have to come again. It just shows their incompetence and their lack of appreciation of the situation. And so I just want to put it out there. First of all, we have not hidden any information. Bank of Ghana has not printed any money, and we want to clarify this issue. It is within the law. Thank you very much.
Well, Dr. Toforson has also been claiming that government will not be able to access the international capital market in the next 2 years. Well, why does he really believe that's the case?
Ghana today has been classified as the second country in the globe that has the highest possibility of debt default. And Mr. Speaker, I can project comfortably that Ghana will not be able to enter the international market at least in the next 24 months. In the next 24 months, there is no way we can have access to the international market because of the situation we are here. Mr. Speaker, the situation is bad. Things fall apart. Mr. Speaker, the center can simply not hold. Speaker, it will also surprise you that this House, when we approved what we call the Sino-Hydro loan, the one that our brothers opposite call it butter. The Speaker, that loan is now due for servicing beginning January next year. The Speaker, we were informed that they are going to collect the revenue from the alumina and use it for the purposes of servicing debt. The Speaker, as we speak, nothing has happened. Now it is on Ghana's head. The Speaker, all of that is hidden from government debt. The Speaker, let me say that I can comfortably project that by the end of the year 2022, Ghana's debt as a percentage to GDP will exceed 90%. 90%, the Speaker. That is the stark reality. The Speaker, I won't be surprised that by the end of the year 2023, our debt situation will be 100% of our GDP. That is where we are. The Speaker, the center can simply not hold. The center can simply not hold. Mr. Speaker, let me say that this budget actually brings about no hope to the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, teachers are suffering. Nurses are crying. Mr. Speaker, members of parliament are crying. Mr. Speaker, I am sure you are suffering. Mr. Speaker, not long ago, we saw what happened at Swami. The people of Swami are crying. Mr. Speaker, when you go to my constituency, the people are crying. Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And thanks for staying with us here On the polls, we need to touch on some more issues coming up because the colleges of education are expected to churn out for the very first time the first batch of degree-holding teachers for the very first time in this year. Now, the feat for many experts is the first towards transforming the training of teachers and by extension some reformation taking place at the educational sector in Ghana. Now in 2014, the government of Ghana, having realized that the initial teacher education system in Ghana was not responding effectively to the changes needed to improve the quality of teachers that are trained, and therefore embarked on a number of reforms, including the decision to transform the institutions into a degree awarding one. Now, in spite of the improvement over the years, there are calls that there must be deep-cutting policies that will also tackle the teething challenges of infrastructure and other needs that confront the schools. Well, a lot of push has been made that some changes should range from issues of scrapping the allowances. Joining me now is Dr. Samuel Antonio, who's the he's actually Samuel Tono. He's the principal of the Accra Colleges of Education. We also have Larry Agbado, who's editor for the Colleges of Education Weekly Journal. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. First of all, let's get a background to the reform that we witnessed in 2014. Larry, there are concerns about how we actually arrived here. What is the journey in terms of transforming the colleges of education from where they used to be into the degree awarding institutions now? Well, just before we get to Larry, Doc, if you can hear me, there's the question about the schools itself and the status of the many colleges of education that we have. There are even fears as of now, as we speak, that there may be shortages in terms of food supply to the schools. What can you, first of all, say about that status in terms of the various colleges, at least speaking from where you manage?
Good afternoon to you and your cherished listeners, and thank you for having us this afternoon to discuss about the state of the colleges this afternoon. I think you asked the question about the reforms, and what happened is in 2018, the colleges were converted to degree 4-year Bachelor of Education degree awarding institutions. And from that point, what it meant is that we're no longer running the diploma program that ended effectively in 2019 or 2020. So with the degree program, we'll have 3 main programs. That's a Bachelor of Education primary option, GHS option, and early grade. So that is what we are now having. Coming back to your question, what's the state of the food in the College of Education? Yes, government still pay the allowances to the students, and then they also provide the feeding grant for the principals to run the colleges. At the moment, I think it's not a bad situation. They are making some release. Of course, there have been some delay, but there's a release coming up, so that can sort of support us.
And that expands the question about the transformation ever since. The concern is that after we did the transformation of the various colleges of education, we have not provided the necessary and adequate resources to improve the conditions on various campuses across the country. What do you feel we can do in terms of changing that narrative?
It is true. First of all, these colleges were established as pre-tertiary institutions, and therefore the infrastructure that existed before the conversion meant that there were some challenges in terms of students, hostels, or residents, which were dormitories, to say, just like the secondary schools had. So we needed to construct new kind of facilities. Of course, also that will also relate to lecture blocks and many other infrastructure that we needed. That hasn't happened. Of course, there have been some modest kind of improvement, but not up to where we would really want it. And the conversation now would be, if you take the colleges of education where government fully support these things, we might want to now look at a situation where can there be a kind of partnership, private government, and which also meant that some fee level or some payment. Take, for example, the accommodation. The student pays about 200 or 300 cedis a year. Naturally, that cannot be enough to sustain or give them any good accommodation. So it requires that we have to have a national conversation and a dialogue to see how we can support. Of course, there's also GET fund allocation, but this allocation is actually based on the number of students that you have across the tertiary institution, thereby disadvantaging the college because our numbers are usually not enough compared to traditional public universities. It will mean the formula will have to be sort of revised and giving priority to the colleges if we have to up the infrastructure to where we actually want them to be.
If you want to list the problems in terms of the challenges confronting the various colleges of education as we speak in contemporary times, where would you ask that the policymakers turn their attention to?
I think where I ended, I would talk about infrastructure. I've also talked about financing, which is actually one of the key things that we are going to discuss in the dialogue tomorrow. Of course, in infrastructure-wise, I'm talking about hostel facilities, lecture blocks, science laboratories. I'm afraid in all the colleges are having serious challenges. They need to be up. I meant science and even ICT. So you need all these things to be in place in order to be able to conduct effective teaching and learning.
So what you mean to say now is that persons who are, for instance, training our various, pupils in all the public schools across the country, for instance, do not have access to proper computer labs. So how then are they able to even train those in the basic schools?
Well, we have some, but there are very few. For example, if a college have about 1,000 students and then your computer lab can accommodate 50, what it simply means is that you have to arrange in a manner that either they sit in pairs or they go in tents, and that can take a longer time for each and everyone to have access to this computer lab. And of course, a critical reform that also came along with this 4-year B.Ed program is the fact that we have changed the way we do our teaching practice, which formerly was the case that the students would do the teaching practice at the final year, one whole year, that's 1 year in year 3. But currently, when the student enters level 100, they are required to start doing this teaching practice, and we have to convey them in buses to the partner schools where they start to observe from year 1. That's a huge challenge to almost all the colleges in terms of transportation. The buses we have are now quite old. Basically, one Tata bus and then another Enchi bus, which is not enough to convey these students. So a very huge challenge for how we conduct our practicals. And remember, we are training teachers. That is a very critical component of what we do in the colleges of education.
There are even issues relating to, for instance, the teacher training allowances. Probably we'll talk about that a bit later on. But let me also bring in Larry Aguado. Larry, the question about the journey so far and how come we've not implemented the reforms till now. What's really accounting for that setback in terms of where we started and where we are now?
Okay, so I think with the reforms, they have been implemented. We are currently in the final lap of the first batch of the BS students. They are currently on campus. I think they should be completing, the first batch of the BS students will be completing their course somewhere October ending. So, and about a few months ago, we had officials from the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission who went around the 46 public colleges of education to conduct an exercise called the fidelity of implementation to access how this B.Ed program has gone on in the past 4 years. In the history of Ghana, this is the first time ever that the colleges of education are churning out teachers with a degree.
Right.
In the past, it used to be, say, we transitioned to diploma, and now we are now doing degree. We have to make mention of key stakeholders like the Transforming Teacher Education and Learning, and then some agencies under the Ministry of Education, National Teaching Council, GTEC also, that's the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, that has brought us this far with the implementation of this 4-year B.Ed curriculum. So I think for now, as a country, we are making giant steps
with churning out teachers who are having not longer diploma but degree. However, there are some challenges that comes with all this. As you mentioned with Dr. Tintono, we have issues of infrastructure. You are training teachers who are coming out with degree, and you go to almost all the colleges of education. We have issues of most colleges not even having science labs or proper science lab facilities. And it's really a serious issue. As I said earlier, these are people who are being trained to also go out there and train our younger ones. So if they don't have practical knowledge of what they are supposed to know, then you begin to fear that when they go out there, what are they going to also train the younger ones with? So we are about to have this national conversation, God willing, tomorrow and Thursday, to discuss into details some of these challenges that we have encountered in the implementation of this 4-year BA curriculum. Despite the successes we have achieved, there are challenges that came along the way. So we are going to discuss those challenges and come out with a position paper that will present to government to consider.
So what do you mean to say is already you're beginning to take some remedial measures. So you're bringing together all the principals to at least communicate one clear position to government to deal with challenges confronting the colleges of education.
Exactly. So we are not just bringing the principals together. We are bringing principals. We are bringing the various groups in the colleges of education. We are bringing the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CTAC, the non-teaching staff, CENTAC, the student leadership TAC, and CSOs in education. All stakeholders are coming together, agencies under the Ministry of Education. We are going beyond the usual rhetoric way of doing things, where we just come talk and then that's the end of it. No, this time around, whatever that we are going to discuss, at the end of it, we are presenting a position paper to government. Successive governments over the years have done their part. They've done their part in supporting the colleges. But we feel that it's time also that as stakeholders, we don't wait for government to always take decisions that in one way or the other either affect us positively or negatively. You made mention of the trainee teachers allowance.
I was just about coming to that, because that's by far the most thorny issue facing the various colleges of education. We've heard from some of the student groups who say government, for instance, hasn't paid the allowance in some months, about 7 months already. So there are varied views on whether it should be scrapped or not. Are you looking at some of these issues as well?
Yes, we are looking at varied views on some of these issues. For instance, you see, when you take the payment of the trainee teachers allowance from 2017 to 2020 alone, government spent over 432 million on the payment of trainee teachers allowance. However, when you go to these colleges, you see less of infrastructure. Now, no one will expect government to pump such huge money into the payment of allowance and still do infrastructure. These colleges are not strong enough to be on their own to put up infrastructure, just like we have in the university, where the universities can use their IGF to raise hostels and other stuff. In the colleges, the numbers will not even permit them to do that. Are you getting me? So we are now at a point where students from the various colleges come out with degree or with BS certificate, just like their colleagues in UCC, their colleagues in Winneba, who also do the same training and come out with BS. But they are not being paid allowance.
Okay, let me bring in Doc on this, because Doc, you're managing the Accra College of Education, so you have a first-hand information on how this issue of the teacher training allowances could be channeled into what some experts say is a much more judicious use. Is it the case that we should be doing away with the teacher training allowances by now, knowing that your organization, the institutions, are now awarding degrees?
I think that is the conversation we want to discuss tomorrow.
Right.
Some are of the view that originally they were diploma and therefore that support was there. Of course, we know the history of paying these allowances dates back to the 60s or even 70s, over 40 years ago. It's not a new thing. But each time there had been a rethinking, it goes off and comes back until it has been restored again. So for me, sitting at where I am, yes, there are really some students who need this kind of intervention to help them.
Right.
And therefore, you would argue that it can still be maintained. But looking at it, if you have to take it away, we must also agree that then they have to be given an opportunity to have access to another source of funding, then we can help. For example, there's a student loan trust fund. Currently, the allowances is paid through that kind of a mode, but the fact is, it is just not enough. So if it has to be up, then it will require probably the students given the opportunity to access more than what is being given to them. But as I said, we will require a national conversation like the dialogue we are having tomorrow and Thursday to reach a consensus. Of course, the students themselves are also invited for us to dialogue, so it doesn't look like some people are taking it away. We would all come together to the table and take a decision that can favor all.
And just recently, CTAC, for instance, was raising concerns about how they're not placed at the same level in terms of conditions of service to that of, for instance, university lecturers in other institutions across the country. Is that also part of the challenges that you're facing as colleges of education?
Yes, it is partly part of the problem. One of the themes that we are going to discuss about the attraction of staff from the College of Education to the public universities and technical universities. Sometime last year, we noticed that across all the colleges, the teaching staff in particular, were moving towards the universities. Why? Because even though they may be senior tutors here, the salary that they get is not comparable to what's happening in the mainstream university. So you have a senior tutor in the College of Education who is leaving for the university to become assistant lecturer. And then he looked at the pay slip as assistant lecturer as an MPhil. That's the basic qualification to become assistant lecturer. And that is higher than what it takes in the College of Education. So that is part of the irony. Why don't you actually pay the person in the college the same salary? Because it's the same entry point, the same teaching that they are doing. So it is also something we have to look at. Otherwise, all of us are feeling the heat they have left, and it's difficult to replace them because there's no financial clearance to recruit.
So as we speak now, there are more and more lecturers who are leaving the colleges of education for the universities.
Exactly, that's the situation. But I think sometime by December, if you notice, they had a strike and they were even threatening another one. I must also admit that there had been some improvement in terms of their conditions of service. For example, what we call responsibility allowance, if you occupy a certain position like a head, they were not paid anything. Last year, that's 2021, government approved of those things, and they are now enjoying that. Car maintenance allowance, some allowances in the university, they are now enjoying. The point here is they do not take up to what is being paid at the university. It's still a certain percentage, and it's a source of worry because the tertiary education landscape, and people are quick to compare. If you take their book and research allowance, they are still taking $1,000 or something thereabout.
Right.
Whereas in the mainstream university, of course, they take higher. Nobody is saying that they should be the same because definitely in the university, I came from that background myself. But we're looking at the situation where even if you are giving a percentage, it shouldn't be so much a difference that they will be leaving us, and we now need them because as a B.Ed program require people with qualifications, and we should not allow that to happen.
All right, we'll wait to see what then happens tomorrow. Larry, the final words from your end. What are we to expect then as to the call to action?
All right, so we're looking forward to hosting all stakeholders, God willing, tomorrow and Thursday at the BDACO conference hall at NAS headquarters for this national dialogue on initial social education. I think we've come a long way as a country, and with the implementation of the B.Ed program, we must be grateful to government, successive government, if I put it so, and then agencies like the Transforming Teacher Education and Learning that has brought us this far. Tomorrow, we intend to have a non-partisan discussion on these issues. We want the development, the growth of the colleges. So we are not going to have any partisan discussion, be it on any of the 7 thematic areas that we have identified to talk about at this national dialogue. We look forward to having a successful dialogue, and at the end of it all, we will present a position paper to government on the way forward for the future of the colleges. So we look forward to having a successful national dialogue tomorrow and Thursday.
Anyway, I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time here on The Pulse. We'll be back after this break. Please stay. And you're welcome back. Now, 2 journalists and a driver of Love FM, a subsidiary of the Multimedia Group Limited, have been attacked by purported watchmen of the Sogah Regional Hospital in the Ashanti region. Now, the media personnel had gone to the Sogah Hospital to file a report on the deplorable nature of roads leading to the hospital when the attackers assaulted them. They vandalized parts of the company's vehicle, including the side mirror, and shattered the rear window glass. However, the journalist and other persons on board the vehicle were unhurt. There's more in this report.
About 11:30 on Monday, 2 men purported to be security personnel of the Sogah Hospital approached a reporter, photojournalist and a driver of Love FM when they noted they had come to the facility to film. The journalist and his colleagues had gone to film the road linking to the hospital, which had stalled for years now. The men, whose names are yet to be identified, started filming the journalist for a supposed breach of taking shots of the facility and denied them access to seek permission from the authorities. They, as a result, sacked them from the premises. While they evacuated the premises, the watchers violently attacked the media personnel, attempting to smash the passenger window of their vehicle and pelted stones at them. They damaged the driving mirror and shattered the rear window glass. The journalist and other persons on board were, however, unhurt. The case has since been reported to the Feyasi police stations with preliminary investigations ongoing. For JoyNews, Emmanuel Bright-Kweku reporting.
And we'll definitely keep an eye on that story and bring you some updates later on. But let's turn our attention back to the judiciary again. The Chief Justice Kwesi Eninyeboah is calling for the adoption of the alternative dispute resolution as a preferred choice in resolving cases. He says the country cannot afford to postpone the total adoption of ADR when it is providing absolute and early resolutions of cases to many who use the traditional courts. Speaking at the launch of this year's ADR week in Kumasi, the Chief Justice urged lawyers to enhance their capabilities and capacities in alternative dispute resolution.
Alternative dispute resolution was instituted in 2005 as an intervention to ease pressure on the regular court system. The ADR Act, Act 789 of 2010, which established ADR, makes it imperative for its adoption regardless of the court, including Ghana's apex court, the Supreme Court.
The Ghana Bar Association Ashanti region, we support it because it is faster, it is cheaper, and it reconciles members who are in conflict.
According to Chief Justice Eninyeboah, ADR, since its introduction, has absolutely resolved 29,558 cases in the last 15 years. He wants all, especially disputants and their lawyers, and the general public to embrace it. He wants the bar, a major stakeholder of the judiciary system, to help entrench alternative dispute resolution in the courts.
Over the last 1.5 decades, the ADR program has to a large extent performed impressively by helping the judiciary to reduce the load on the courts by 29,558 cases. This is a positive support ADR has offered to the judiciary, without which this load would have been borne by the courts under more stressful conditions. The good news is that this number of cases resolved at ADR are resolved absolutely without resorting to appeals, which also creates another backlog. I take this opportunity to urge the members of the bar, as the major stakeholder of the judiciary to cooperate with us as we entrench ADR in our adjudication process. My lords, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Sections 72 and 73 of the Courts Act 1993 at 459, CI 133, and the ADR Act, that is Act 789 2010, makes it imperative that ADR should be adopted regardless of the court, whether at the District Court, Circuit Court, High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. They need to work hard in Ghana to make ADR a preferred choice for disputants and their lawyers is now. We cannot afford to postpone it indefinitely.
Meanwhile, Justice Irene Charity Labi, in charge of ADR, has described ADR as a reliable partner to the traditional justice delivery system. She has been explaining how ADR can be accessed in Ghana.
One may ask, how do I access the ADR? A court, at any stage of the proceedings, can refer a matter to the ADR, and any of the parties can also request for ADR during the trial. With the process being optional, the consent of the parties is sought before the matter is referred. The ADR program has been extended to 131 courts across the nation, with at least 5 mediators assigned to each of these courts. A total of 635 mediators have been trained and assigned to the 131 courts connected to the ADR program.
Ohimen Terrier's report read to you.
Let's bring in a lawyer, private legal practitioner and also law lecturer, Justice Abdullahi, joining us on this development now. Thank you, sir, for your time. It appears that the ADR is a lesser known, or at least not a favorable option for many lawyers. But then the Chief Justice, as we're hearing now, is asking that the officers of the court need to take advantage of this. How crucial is this in the judicial system?
Lawyers are actually in favor of ADR. Lawyers do not make their money necessarily income from litigating. That is a wrong perception out there.
Right.
Litigation is just but one of the means, and it's not even the fastest means that lawyers make their income. And so no lawyer would advise that he litigates when he knows he can resolve a matter outside of the courtroom. Indeed, you rather make your money faster and better through that means, and you're able to bring the parties together in a more reconciliatory manner after having gone through alternative dispute resolution. So yes, lawyers are in support of ADR. Lawyers encourage ADR. Our laws encourage ADR, but maybe not in the way that one would have expected. There are very, particularly when it comes to the criminal aspect of law, it doesn't push that strongly for ADR, and which is why now lawyers are advocating for restorative justice, indeed, because that's the way to go. We cannot be building bricks all the time and putting people who would have otherwise served the nation better behind bars when they could better serve us through other means. We spend a lot of money and time fending for people who are better used out there rather than in custody, that we spend so much money to protect, feed, accommodate, among other things. And so whichever way you look at it, whether I come to the criminal justice department or the civil aspect of it, restorative justice is a better option with criminal justice, and indeed ADR is the better option with regards to civil disputes.
And we're learning of some new figures, for instance, that the Chief Justice is putting out there. Some 29,000 cases, in terms of the burden of cases on the judges, being reduced as a result of the ADR. How does this work?
I am sure these are court-connected ADRs that the Chief Justice is reporting on. Now, what the court-connected ADRs are disputes that arise and are reported to the court or suits filed at the court, and the judges make reference to an alternative dispute resolution that is connected, or that is part of the court structures. And so, assuming you file a case against me, we go to court, and the judges look at the circumstances of the parties and the very nature of the issues before it, and sometimes come to that conclusion that this matter could be better said at the ADR, and so they make reference that the parties see an ADR officer and attempt a resolution there. There are also, particularly for the commercial aspect of our dispute resolution, that is mandatorily supposed to go through ADR. So once you file a commercial case at a commercial court, you will be required to go through a mandatory ADR settlement resolution. It's only when it fails to be resolved, then it goes back to the courtroom for the appropriate legal issues to be determined in accordance with the customary laid down procedures.
Right.
So I believe, and in the district court, after the district court, they actually have an ADR week. I believe it's every September or thereabout. That whichever case comes automatically goes there. Otherwise, it becomes a selective. Outside of this window is a selective ADR that the judges would always refer to. So,
and I guess the aim.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I guess the aim of all of this is to ensure that there's justice, and part of the measures, some say, is also about shoring up the numbers both at the superior courts, be it High Court, the Court of Appeal, and also the Supreme Court. We are learning of this new development, of course, from the President nominating 4 persons to the position of Supreme Court justices. You've seen the names. Which one touches you the most?
Naturally, the biggest surprise is that of Justice Gairu, who is a very good friend, coincidentally. And he's at the High Court, and being jumped from the High Court to the Supreme Court is a bit unusual. It's legal, it's lawful.
Right.
There's absolutely nothing legally wrong with that, except that it's unusual because we are not used to seeing that. Usually you would find a High Court judge being promoted to the Court of Appeal, maybe a year or two promoted to the Supreme Court. Now, the reason why it could be a year or two is because the difference really between the High Court and the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, the numbers are very slim. And so whereas you have to be, say, 10 years at the High Court, you need to be 12 years at the Court of Appeal.
And 15, I guess.
And then 15 years at the Supreme Court. And most of the judges that are appointed to the High Court are actually 15 years or more. And so which means that by way of the experience, they are already qualified to be at the Supreme Court. And Justice Gairu is one of such persons. He's qualified to be at the Supreme Court. But he was actually qualified to be at the Supreme Court even before he was appointed to the High Court. But one would have expected, if you go by our usual way of doing things, would have gone to the Court of Appeal and then maybe a year or two go to the Supreme Court. But this time he decided to jump. Like I said earlier, there's nothing legally wrong with that because there's nothing legally requiring that you go from one level to the other before you end up at the Supreme Court. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
There's the question about the recent appointments being done into the bench. The question as to whether or not it's just routine, as we're seeing by the President. What more do we know about it?
Indeed, I think this is probably this President has appointed the most to the judiciary than any other president in the history of our republic, and whether from across levels, whether it's the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal or even the High Court or any other court, lower court, this president has appointed the most of the judges than any other president ever in our history, and that ought to be put on record. Unfortunately, we need a lot of the judges. We do not. We have so many cases that we need so many judges to be able to handle the backlog of cases. We are still in the era where cases still last for over 5 years and 10 years at the courtroom, and so without having the necessary logistics and personnel, we will still be having those complaints going forward. And it's just right that we have enough to, particularly at the court of first instance, the High Court, and then the Circuit Court, and indeed even the District Court. We need a lot more because these are the places where most of the cases go to. With regards to the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal, of course, now because of the multiplicity of regions and the right of appeal without any limitations on the party, there are a lot more cases go on appeal. But I would believe that a lot of cases truncate at the Court of Appeal and the High Court. Going to the Supreme Court is not something that happens that often, and you do not have much of the case of cases that probably would commence from the Supreme Court, apart from constitutional related cases, which are not that many. And so, but for appeals are so limited going to the Supreme Court. Very few people are able to pursue an appeal all the way to the Supreme Court. And so I did not think that we need so much members of the Supreme Court justices. And this brings, of course, in the issue of the ceiling to the Supreme Court as well. We may find ourselves in a situation where, because now we probably have a system where everybody goes to the Supreme Court on the issue of electoral disputes. We may likely find ourselves finding every president appointing so many other people who do not have ceiling at the Supreme Court, simply because he would like to have members of the Supreme Court who are either in favor of his political party or some way or somehow affiliated to his ideological principles. And so believing that once you are there, the favors also that decisions will be made in favor of the ruling government. And this is, of course, at the backdrop of the recent Supreme Court decision where there is almost continuous 7-0 issues became a mantra, that almost every case that appears to be against the ruling government goes in favor of the government. And so it has brought in this debate about having a ceiling at the Supreme Court. And I think it's high time we had a conversation around this area and find a lasting solution so that before we find ourselves having about 100 judges sitting at the Supreme Court, which will not augur well for our national development.
We'll see how that unfolds, but I'm grateful, Lawyer Justice Abdullahi, for joining us here.
For God and country always.
The Pulse now. And that's all we have for you in this package of The Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates.